Welcome to the Your Family Dog podcast, where we celebrate the special bond between families and their canine companions. Our goal is to help families and dogs grow up together, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. Today I'm joined by my good friend Debra Murray from Smarty Paws, and you're in the Kansas City area, right?
Correct. Missouri side.
The Missouri side. And I've known Debra, almost 20 years, 15 maybe?
Probably at least 15. Yeah.
When neither of
Been a
us had any
while.
gray hair.
Hey, now I'm going to take that personal because
Oh, I color mine, girlfriend.
personal
Like
choice.
I just,
The personal
I,
choice.
matter of fact, I just had a conversation with my hairstylist about like, so what does it look like if I want to go gray? And she's like, no, we're not doing that yet. She's like, there's no crying in my chair. I was like, well, alrighty then. So yeah,
So I'm just kind of letting it go that way.
she's like, you're 50% gray. So no, we're not doing that yet. All right. So today we thought we would talk about um, a real conversation with moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and whoever about when we bring a pet into our home, regardless of species. Um, this whole idea of you know, what's the right choice? How do you navigate it? What about when the kids go to college? Because I love families enough to tell them their kids are going to move out most of the time. That's typically college or going to work and starting an independent life and navigating pets in regard to that. Debra and I were talking about that. We have seen some families that when their kids go off to college, they're suddenly looking for a home for the dog because really mom, dad's heart wasn't in having a pet. Their child desperately wanted a pet. And now the child can't, not doesn't want to, but can't take that dog, to the freshman dorm. That's not allowed. So we're going to talk a little bit about selecting a pet for your family, given a bunch of different dynamics and kind of the thought process that we would recommend as people on the, hey, we're trying to love you through this side to really help. So understand in this conversation, no one is judging. We're talking about what we see sometimes and honestly, the heartbreak that comes with that and how to make the best of situations that aren't always so clear cut, right?
And truly, like these thoughts and ideas have come through experience, like when I was working and in the trenches with dogs and toddlers, this stuff never came to mind, like how I know the dog's going to change, I know the kids are going to change, but I didn't think 5, 10, 15 years, and then we've talked about some other pets that last way decades, beyond that. So absolutely, there's no judgment, just kind of the idea of brainstorming, like how people can think ahead a little bit and have a grasp on what is to come for preparation and preparing for it.
Right. And I mean,
Not
I
getting
find
stuck in
myself
a
saying to
situation.
parents often, you're not getting a dog for your child or you're not getting a cat for your child. You're doing this for the entire family. You have to be involved. And frankly, you have to at least a certain extent, embrace the experience and the commitment. There will always be things that happen that require, hey, we need a place for the dog to go. Like that happens and no one is quarrelsome about that, right? Somebody gets an awful diagnosis or a life situation significantly changes that changes the dynamic. That's understandable. Um, but I do get people, parents in particular, who want a 9 or 10 or 7 year old child, and it makes them mad when I tell them that child cannot be singly responsible for the animal.
Right.
The animal suffers, and so does the child, because the child is never going to measure up to an adult level of caretaking. They can't, they're not adults yet. So while I understand the drive that we want our children to learn empathy and to learn responsibility and to help, the dog that you get is going to be a family dog, and mom, dad kind of have to take responsibility and then let everyone else help and learn. and understanding that when your kid goes off and out, that likely that first set of housing is not going to accommodate the extra responsibility of a pet. We talked about all different species, by the way. So Christopher, when his kids were little, wanted box turtles, and he didn't really know anything about box turtles. And so they all together did a bunch of research about box turtles, and he learned that box turtles outlive humans, that their requirements to thrive were well beyond the capability of what his family was willing or able to provide. So they decided that while they love box turtles, they were not going to get one. Um, I have a cousin who has a tortoise. The tortoise will easily outlive all of the people who are currently alive on the planet. So having to have a plan for what to do with that tortoise when your child goes to college, and now this is still a very young tortoise, is a big consideration. I almost bought what was it, a military macaw, and that bird was 35 years old, had lived with the same woman his whole life, hated everyone else. But when I looked up his life expectancy, I was like, oh no, like how, like I at that time wasn't planning on having kids. I was like, what am I going to do with this bird? Because it's going to outlive me, even, right? A second owner. So I ended up not getting the military macaw. Now, can you get a rat? Yeah, a rat's going to live 2 years, right?
Well, and I mean, I think some of those longer ones, sometimes you are going to have to plan, for their lifespan. But I think sometimes we miss these pets that live shorter and we think of as family pets, as we hear the rabbits, guinea pigs, rats, certain kinds of snakes and bearded dragons and reptiles. And what are some of the other popular,
Oh, I
you
mean,
know,
there's dart
cats,
frogs
dogs,
and
frogs,
chinchillas, and so
ferrets?
hermit crabs live
Yeah.
sometimes 30 years.
They could probably go to a college dorm though.
Yes, I would agree. But you
So
may
that
find that
might
your
be
child doesn't want it to go to the college
true.
dorm because maybe you
That's
look
true.
weird if you have a hermit crab. I personally would think you were remarkably cool if you had a hermit crab.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I would say is, like, as parents are navigating all of this, I think about all the different layers, which is probably exhausting. Um, but I can't imagine rehoming a 12 or a 14-year-old dog because my child's headed to college.
Mhm.
I I can't imagine the heartbreak for the dog and for the child. Um, but I can also understand someone who isn't really a dog person having this dog that they don't dislike, but it's not really, they don't have a dog shaped hole in their heart, which not everybody does. Then what's the plan going to be? And so maybe some forward planning of, well, we've got, my sister really loves dogs. And when my child goes to college, maybe the dog goes to my sister. How would you navigate it? How are you navigating it with the people who contact you?
Well, firstly, I've realized that no matter how much I think I get a pet for my kids, or it's their pet and they're taking care of it while they're here, that I am still very much the parent responsible for the kids and for the pets that they have. So I keep myself involved in the care and all of the things. Um, let them have some of that responsibility and they lead with it and they do all the things, but I'm there. I make sure that I have time with the pets. That like we do haul time with the bunnies and I do treat time and training time. And then I have my dogs on top of that. But when you come to that spot, it just seems to be a lot that I see in my circle. And right now I'm trying to get the word out to parents, like, because they're like, oh, our 7 or 8 year old, 9 year old, 10-year old, we're ready to get them a pet. We don't have toddlers anymore. And so I'm like, well, let's think about the changes that your child is going to go through, especially when you get some of the pets that bond more. Obviously some are, less one-on-one person oriented and they can be okay, but that no matter what move you make with them, it's a transition. So
Yes.
it's pretty much always going to be stressful for most pets of any species to have a transition into another home, even if they're not considered, one of those bonding type pets. Um, so I kind of you ask how I navigated at this point. At this point, it's just starting the conversation to go, look, let's think about what we're talking about. There's going to be, first of all, your 10-year-old, that's great, but in 3, 4 years, they're gonna get their permit, they're gonna get their driver's license, they're gonna start going out with friends more because at 13, we might be home, hanging out on the phone and in our room and whatever, doing our teenage thing. And so a pet is a great friend and comfort. But then now I get my driver's license 2, 3, 4 years later, and woo, they're off with their friends. They're doing their activities. Then they're wanting a job because they want some money. And then 2 years they are off to college. And even if they're not off to college, they're not around as much, like
Right.
I don't think you realize you hear about teenagers and kids growing up, but it's one of those things you don't know till you experience it kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
they're busy.
what it's like. They're busy, right? And I noticed that even as a homeschool mom, when the kids were in elementary school and younger, we were home a lot. Like they had nap times or we had people over and did, co-op things together and we were home. Now we're teenagers and we're out of the house activities. There's some days I'm just like, oh my gosh, my poor dogs. Like, thank goodness husband works at home now because most people do kind of have to leave, for a work day and things like that. But when it's just nonstop and then it's like they wake up in the morning, they go do their things, and then they come home late at night, take a shower, go to bed, there's no time. And then, the animal, if we're talking dogs and things, they don't need the same energy requirements that they did when they were younger and stuff. But they still need love and attention,
Yes.
like just
And they
needing
miss
their
us.
basic needs. I think the quality of life is a question that comes in for me sometimes because it's like just because your 8 or 9 or 10-year-old dog doesn't need the exercise, like you said, they miss us. And then the quality of life, is it just our responsibility as when we bring an animal into our home to give them basic care, take care of their basic needs? Or are they family? Like, do
Right.
we have capacity and emotional availability to care for them? I mean, if it's a dog, they're surely going to help care for you.
Well, and a
Like,
cat too, right?
yes,
I mean, and I'm sure a bunny.
a
I mean,
bunny,
the
absolutely.
people
I
I
would,
know who have bunnies and love bunnies um, talk about how
they're so
bonded they get
amazing.
and how
They
sweet
are.
their little hearts are. So now I do know people who have had rabbits who are like, they
Oh,
didn't
they're
have a
spicy
bunny,
too.
they had a rabbit.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it, ate an entire room and
Hmm.
wasn't very much fun. So I think Christopher's family had a meat rabbit named Sebastian.
Hmm.
Christopher called him a pellet converter because he changed cylindrical pellets into round pellets and weighed like 40 pounds. And he didn't like being picked up, right? And so
Yeah.
they would like let him out of his little hutch or his big hutch to play in the yard. But then Sebastian did not want to go back in the hutch. And
Yeah.
that was like all hands on deck to wrestle a rabbit. So
Yeah.
that's what happens when you get a meat rabbit versus
I
a
mean,
pet
there's a
rabbit.
lot of rabbits that are not. I think that's the other thing, the expectation of like when we bring these pets into our home, like a lot of people kind of are like, this pet is going to fulfill a need for us. And that doesn't always happen. Some of them, they need basic care, but part of what helps them thrive is that consistency and that routine and kind of our commitment to show care for them beyond just here's your food bowl, here's, throw it out, here's some water kind of thing.
Well, and I even think about how this happens in a really benign way. So,
Hmm.
I'm the oldest of four kids, and we had a little ranch house, right, when we were growing up. And so my parents finished part of the basement. So we had another place, like, so that there could be a TV upstairs and downstairs, and we could do homework downstairs and it would be quiet. We'd have a separate place that we could go do that, and built it out. And it was great. In between the two desks on the workspace in the basement, they put an aquarium, right? So you had something that was relaxing and you could enjoy it, but it wasn't crazy high levels of having to take care of things. And I can remember after I moved out, going down into the basement, and those poor fish,
Hmm.
like, I don't think anybody had even looked, other than feeding, had really looked at that aquarium in a long time. And so those fish had gone from, over the years, having kids sitting and doing their homework from the time they were in kindergarten until the time they were, up and out and in an apartment. Because I went to school, college locally. So I would come home and do my accounting homework. Um, but I even think about those fish. Like, no one was even really going downstairs to watch TV anymore. So it was like they just became, and it was a giant aquarium. She wasn't going to move that upstairs. I don't even know that you could. So even something as benign as the fish, like when I would go over, the fish would come up to the glass, like, oh, good, there's a human. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily think of them as hugely sentient, but I think they are.
Oh yeah.
And I know snakes are.
Hmm.
And if my child had gotten a snake and then moved out, that would not be a very comfortable hat for me. I would have manned up and done it, but I would not have enjoyed it. And I
Hmm.
do think that, just like when we know someone who tolerates us, but we're not really a hat that fits very well for them, I
Yeah.
think other animals recognize, non-human animals recognize that too, that they go, yeah, this person's taking care of me, but they don't like me. Do you think that's true?
Oh, I definitely think animals can have the most amazing senses and can tell so many things about us, that we don't even realize. So, absolutely.
So if you had a family now, let's say they have a 10-year-old child, and they're like, he really, really wants a dog. At this point, what I tend to do is talk to them about adopting an adult dog, right? So we get all of the best pieces, right? Somebody else has done all the puppy raising. We have an idea of who that dog is, what that dog enjoys, what its sensitivities are, those kinds of things. Sometimes I'm going to rescue and talking to a foster home and somebody who lives with the dog. Other times I'm talking to a professional breeder about a retired dog that's not going to be bred and shown anymore. Sometimes it's, I'm hearing through the grapevine that somebody had a nasty diagnosis. Their dog is now available because they're going to have to move into assisted living. And so this great dog is available
Mhm.
through no fault of his or her own. We know kind of what the attributes of that dog are. Um, and we can also kind of infer some, how long is their lifespan? Sadly, life expectancy for a flat coated retriever is 7 years, right? A Great Dane is, I would say, 10 to 12 is old. If
Mhm.
you do it miraculously well, 14. Um, there are different lengths of time that, generally speaking, dogs are going to have a lifespan. Cats are significantly longer. My cat is 14 and he acts like a 2 year old. I'm pretty sure he's going to outlive me. Um, do you help families navigate, like, maybe instead of a puppy, if a dog isn't really in your gifting, instead of doing the most difficult part on the front end, let's integrate an adult dog that is going to make maybe more closely match the timeline that the primary adult caretaker would be, that fits for them. There's not an easy way to say that. I'm not judging, but like, if you don't like dogs, but your children desperately want dogs and you go, okay, I can do a dog, I would not necessarily say, let's get a dog who's likely to a Chihuahua that's going to live 18 years.
Hmm.
Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like that's if you're not thinking it's your dog as well as the parent, then I wouldn't, I would think about what the lifespan is and what the care is going to be for that animal going forward.
So when you have a family who comes to you and mom says, I'm really busy, I don't really want a dog, but the kids are pestering me mercilessly, how do you navigate that conversation?
Okay, I have to be honest. I say get involved with a rescue and let's foster a dog.
That's my recommendation too. Let's foster a dog and see how it goes.
I say let's consider being a foster family and go from there.
And I often ask mom, what things could she or dad take off of their plate? Well, okay, so I'm old, so I have heard all of the kids doing the I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and it's like all these things are going to happen, and
That's
I'm
funny.
I'm intellectually honest enough to go, okay, I'm going to throw a flag on that play. That being said, what I have typically said to parents is to sit down with their kids and go, great, you tell me you're going to do all these things, so let's start behaving that now, right? So you're going to keep your room, like have the kids take over some of the responsibilities you personally have that would open up bandwidth for you to be able to navigate the dog, right? So, especially if you get a puppy, you're talking about probably 2 years, definitely at least 12 weeks of pretty intense amounts of management and support.
Yeah.
Is bringing home an infant with razor sharp teeth and no diaper.
No
And they
diaper.
have
Yep.
all those same needs. And we can talk about ways to make that much, much easier to navigate, but it's still a tremendous amount of work, even when you're making it easier to navigate. So, first, be honest with yourself. My experience is children do not enjoy the puppy stage because the puppy is mouthing and biting and all of the things.
That's true.
And then mom is losing it because she's like, I didn't even want a dog. Now I have all this responsibility and the kids won't be involved because the dog's no fun. And it's a lot of hubbubaloo.
Hmm.
So I really do try to encourage families to consider fostering an adult dog that we know some things about, that we know that
Right.
that's a safe thing to do, but also to make the changes 6 months in advance, right? So is your child willing to keep their stuff picked up around the house 6 months in advance? Are they helping by learning to do their own laundry 6 months in advance, or to vacuum every day, or any number of chores? Do you ever counsel that way too, or no, to have the changes happen ahead of time?
I don't think that I have ever, more than like talking about it, I've come across a lot of families who the moms kind of have, the moms are the organizers of the home. So they have that mindset that like that's a checklist. It's like kids, this is the agreement. You're going to do this thing. Like you're talking about divvying things up, and while they're, you're saying doing it ahead of time, there might have to be some reinforcement for doing it ahead of time without the animal actually being present.
Right,
So like maybe having maybe they can like if they keep to those things, then they can get maybe like some toys or something for the dog who's going to come or something
right.
like that. But yeah, no, that's a good way to start some good habits.
Yeah, I mean, if
I
you have the
just
kid who's like flicking socks all over the house because they get hot and they take them off and they stick them here and stick them there, well, you bring a dog in, dogs kind of notoriously will grab a hold of socks, right?
but sometimes that's the exact lesson they need, right?
True.
Because they
Yes.
drop their stuff. You're like, I've told you this 5 million times. We've practiced
Pick
it
up your
and you
stuff.
did it. And then now there's actually like a consequence that, means something to them because their favorite pair of fun socks just got holes
Oh,
in
I
them.
felt so bad. I have this really sweet family I'm working with, and the puppy, their first puppy, got a hold of their preteen daughter's this pair of shoes that she just got for her birthday that she had been begging for. And they're
Mm,
not ruined, they're just
right.
damaged. It's damage that can be fixed. And so mom's like, oh, what do I do? And I was like, I would take the shoes to a cobbler and I would find out, what it would cost to fix them. And then I would have her, I would come up with some sort of budget agreement. So if you sweep the kitchen floor, that's $2 a day, right? And let the child work off the money that
Mhm.
pays to fix the shoes to get them back the way they should be. In my experience, that teaches kids pretty quickly to like pull the bedroom door and don't leave your shoes on the
Right.
floor, right? Now again, this is a family that's never had a dog. So
Hmm.
it's and they jumped in with a puppy and he's an amazing puppy. He's a great puppy. They're doing a phenomenal job. But stuff is still going to happen.
Right.
Where honestly, if you bring an adult dog in, the list of things that are likely to happen is it's much shorter, right? Um
Yeah.
but he's awesome and I wouldn't change a thing. He's great. But we were like, how do we help this child really solidify? Because, mom's doing we just spent all this money on these shoes and she's been begging for those shoes forever. And I'm so annoyed and frustrated and all the feels. And I was like, well, here's a way to navigate it. And she's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So when someone gets a dog and the dog is getting into things, regardless of age, how do you help families navigate how to work through that?
Oh boy, it really depends on the family. This is the great question, the greatest answer, right? It always
It
depends, right?
depends is
Because
one of
it
my favorite answers.
depends, it totally depends because, what one family structure and the way they work is totally different than the way this other family operates. And, sometimes it's having heart to hearts with mom, like, you've just got to like relax and realize nobody's perfect, nothing's perfect. There are gonna be some things that you just have to let go. Like you do it, the house doesn't have to be perfect.
Right. Like
You don't
some
have
things are
to,
going to get shifted to the back burner instead of the
right.
front burner.
Because sometimes there's just an overreaction to things, we don't have this idea like, oh, it's a puppy, but we forget that we're going to be having to get up at night and clean up poop and clean up pee and clean up throw up probably and buy more toys and spend more money and all these things that come with puppies, and biting and all this stuff. And so to be like, that's going to happen. It's kind of normal. And we'll, whatever that situation is, we'll make that plan around it to help. And if it's, like, the kids can't keep their stuff picked up or whatever, sometimes it's like, we'll just keep everything in the laundry room. And now kids, when they get dressed in the morning, they got to go to the laundry room to get their stuff. Like they don't get extra things in the room to choose from. Or we, instead of leaving our shoes at the front door on those cute little shoe racks, now we have a covered bin for a year or whatever it is, till puppy's old enough to not want to get into those things or that sort of thing. There's usually a lot of management things that you can do to cause peace of mind. And a lot of times people will say, well, then doesn't that not teach the puppy that shoes aren't okay? And I kind of find in that vein is that most of the time, if they don't have the access to things as a puppy like that, and you're vigilant about having those things covered or just making it so it's not a thing for them to do, that they're not going to start having that habit. Like they're not going to start chewing your shoes at 2 years old,
Right.
when they
You
didn't
can't
have
put
access to
you
them, kind of
can't put the
thing.
poop back in the horse,
Yeah.
right? So once your puppy has gained an affinity for how squishy a flip-flop is when they're chewing it, you're done. Because there's no mind eraser like in Men in Black, right? Like that's
Right.
not a thing. We can't like the brain of the puppy and go, oh, he's gonna forget how much he loves left flip-flops. Like that's not gonna happen. So um likewise, if we were to extend this logic to other things, how many of us just leave a plate of cupcakes on the table all the time and expect our kids to learn how to navigate no around the cup. Like, no, we
We
not
have trouble with
toddlers.
that. Well, I have trouble with that myself.
Right. Right. Like I don't have donuts in the house because I'll eat them all. I've seen me do it. So we don't want to test the willpower as that quite that much. And I would agree. Yes, there are some really, like, I have been in some homes that, oh my goodness, like right inside the door is this beautiful cabinet with, we put all of our shoes. And I think, and they're talking about getting a puppy. And I'm like, oh, it's like a buffet, like a buffet of scent and leather. Yay. Right. So, really, things that are really awesome to chew on. So, I am often saying to them, like, okay, well, just like, we're going to change that for just a time. The
Hmm.
same way that our houses change for our children for a time, right? You don't leave your most precious possessions on the floor with a toddler. I don't want to tempt fate too terribly much. I also do want the dog to learn how to live in the environment. So there are a lot more no's than yeses. And so I like to increase the yeses and to not always have the same toys out all the time because I think dogs get bored the same way we do. Lots of playing hide and go seek. And honestly, I think so. I was raised, I don't know that you know this, Deborah. I was raised with Doberman Pinschers. Doberman Pinscher puppies are hysterical. Whatever they find, they just bring it to you, right? So, oh, I found a bony. You're like, yay, awesome bony. Nice job. Go chew, right? And then they're like, hey, I found this flip flop. And you're like, yay, let's trade that for a bony. Good job. Off you go, right? So, I thought growing up that all dogs were that way. Yeah, that's not how Jack Russell Terriers. That's not their no. They just murder it wherever it is, and you'll find it later when you're paying for bowel obstruction surgery. So, I a lot of times say to families like, don't scold the puppy for finding things. Revel in what the puppy found, whether it was something appropriate or inappropriate. That way, your puppy is very emotionally comfortable bringing it to you, or even an adult dog to bring you the thing. It doesn't mean we're going to have a big quarrel over it. And then I'm going to trade if it's not appropriate or safe to something that is, or I'm going to, oh, may I have your bony? Oh, it's beautiful. That's the best bony I've ever seen. Here you go. Go play with your bony. Um, I also collect up things that the puppy or dog is going to find and put them in a basket in the middle of the kitchen table. And when we're eating dinner, we pull things out of the basket and sort it for who's whose. Usually, most of it's my stuff that's been laying around. So I lose this game every time. Um, but the winner, the one who has the least number of things, can hand off a chore or can get some special privilege, stay up an extra half an hour, or, choose the book before bed or whatever. But we're not scolding everybody for everything. Like, I think parenting is hard enough without adding another layer of awful. I'd rather celebrate and laugh at one another and get to a place that we realize what kinds of things the puppy or the adult dog is going to get into that could be problematic.
And I think too, sometimes we were talking about the training aspect of that. Like we adopted our Jack in 2020. He was our COVID, but he wasn't a puppy. He was an adolescent. He's almost a year old. And he's only got one eye and he's so mouthy, but he's a retriever. But I also think some of the mouthiness is a little bit of making up for some of that vision impairment. And man, everything is in his mouth. And so the idea of like making it, oh my gosh, what do you have? And it becomes that these golden retriever prances, they are the best. He's just so happy. He's like, look what I got. I got a spoon. Like he picks up anything and
Right.
everything. And it's just like if I just say, Jack, what do you have? He looks at me with that little one eye off to the side, and he gets that little, and I'm like, let me see. And then he prances himself over so proud. And I'm like, oh, I love that's magnificent. And then I can trade it or I can put it away or I can give it back. And when we first got him, it was so bad, because he was used to probably, damn it, dog,
Right.
whatever. So he would be like, what? So I started like presenting him things like, especially toilet paper rolls were my favorite thing because, and water bottles, now that you, I see it, I would just toss them, leave them out, and he would get it. And then I knew I could do that with him because it was something that I kind of controlled. So I presented some stuff to him to make it fun. And he'd bring it over like, are you gonna keep it or can I have it? And I'd be like, go get it. And I'd throw it out and just their whole body and the way they light up when it was like, oh, I thought you were gonna keep this thing, but you're actually like, we get to play with it.
Right.
And so now when he gets something, he's just like, hi, look what I got. So whether it's a frog or a toilet paper roll or a spoon or a knife or all of the lovely things that he likes to put in his mouth, I at least get first dibs because he's like wants to show it to me instead of keep it from me.
Right. So for those kinds of dogs, do you recommend like hide and go seek kind of games or scent games? Because obviously the dog is enjoying finding things and solving those puzzles. I often think that dogs or kids show us the enrichment they crave. So if my kid
Yeah.
is tapping all the time, my feels about a drum kit kind of don't matter because that kid's getting a drum kit so that I can direct what that child's interested in now. It doesn't mean that in 3 years we're still going to have a drum kit because my child might outgrow that. It might be, I don't know, a sousaphone next or a dirt bike, who knows? But do you find that that works well for families to, instead of it, oh, stupid dog is doing the thing again, to kind of reframe it of, well, being able to say to your dog, like, hey, can you go get that sock for me and retrieve it to me? Because little Billy always leaves his socks in the bathroom. I often think because we do so much service dog work, I look through a different lens of like, okay, this behavior that feels inappropriate right now, how can we use it to benefit mom or
Hmm.
dad or the kids? So if I have a dog who will bring the socks to the laundry room, that's a win.
Yeah. And I think that has to do with going back to kind of, I don't know if it's the trainer or behaviorist or, geeky people idea, idea that there's a need that needs to be fulfilled, like kind of the legs thing. It's like there's part of genetics and things that are going on in this dog, and that's something that they need. And so, how can we meet that need rather than just trying to cruelly punish it out of them, frustrate the heck out of ourselves, and just deprive them from something that they're naturally bent to do, which we see as a destructive or inappropriate behavior, but it is so species or breeded or whatever related and appropriate. It's just that it doesn't work in our little human world, you know.
Well, or
So
we haven't,
to
yeah, we
see what
haven't
that
looked through a
behavior
lens of
is,
how would this work in my human world.
right, of how can we, make them stop digging in the carpet, but provide digging or, the shredding of the kids' stuffed animals. Like how they're always tearing up the kids' stuffed animals. Okay, so what can we do for them so that they can do that, but we can teach them the kids' stuffed animals are off limits. But here's the things, that we can set up and we can do things with that can meet your needs.
So I've used scent work for that.
Mhm.
I will put the kids' toys that are out, that the dog is likely to have a lot of access to. I will put them in a box with a different scent than the dog's toys. And I used to, I don't have them anymore. I used to have two teddy bear toys. One was branded for infants and toddlers, and one was branded for dogs, and they were completely identical.
Mhm.
And so I would use that in like my dogs and storks or dogs and toddlers presentations to say, how is the dog supposed to tell these apart?
Yeah.
We can't tell them apart. So I use scent. So I have like think of like a toy box with a lid,
Mhm.
right? I just put a cotton ball with a little bit of, I don't know, pine in the corner, and my kids' toys, toddler toys, go in there at night,
Mhm.
right? They will scent enough. Dogs don't really love the scent of pine. So it's a little bit of a natural inhibition. I'm sure someone will tell me that that's a terrible idea. you can use whatever scent you want. But then I teach the dog that that scent is like the no-go zone. I
Right.
also use scent when I have a dog who's losing their vision to say, you're stepping toward the stairs. You need to be careful. Um, and then I also have scents that these are things that are like go zones for the dog who's, because I want a dog to be able to navigate pretty well. And they do adjust on site pretty easily, but still, we're going to be careful about stairs. Um, do you have other strategies to help along any dog learn the difference between the stuff that belongs to the kids and the stuff that belongs to them?
I mean, I do put things in their appropriate places. Like there is the dog toy box. A lot of times, things that are theirs, for in the beginning, especially, those are what they only have access to. But if there are kids, things that they absolutely cannot have, we try to keep them separate. And that's something I think with young kids as parents, when you bring any dog and or any, animal that's going to be out and about, that's something you got to consider. And it's not the child's responsibility ultimately. I mean, you are raising and teaching your kids and they're learning responsibility. And there's only so much that their little brains and development can literally be responsible for. And so to recognize as a parent that sometimes just because my kid can do something or they're capable doesn't mean they're going to do something. And if I'm already at my capacity with overwhelm or stress or, things going on in life, then bringing home any animal is probably going to be something I really need to think long and hard about and weigh out, especially with a professional, somebody who helps you kind of think that through and how to do it in your home. That's why like I offer a puppy package through Smarty Paws that is before you get the dog. It's a consultation to go, if you get a puppy, let's walk through your home and set up for this. And then let's talk about the different stages this puppy's going to have as they grow and change. And then also how your family dynamic changes around that, as well as for foster dogs. And I just think it's something that's so commonly overlooked. Rescues are getting better at education for people and kind of saying, how are you going to accommodate the dog a little bit? Not that I think the dog gets all the accommodation, absolutely. We still have to keep our houses in order to the best of our ability. But we do have to really think about realistically what we can take on and what it entails because our pet homes, I mean, domesticated dogs and pets have changed a lot in the last couple decades here, but even the last decade, we don't just have them running around in the neighborhood doing their own thing. Like that's not okay anymore. They've become family members for real. And so giving them that life and us being able to adjust to how they fit in our family with the species that they are and us keeping them through life. Back to the beginning topic of
Yes.
us keeping them through their lifespan and as much as possible.
Yes. Again, looking at life expectancy, it's not a hard, fast rule. I've lost a female Doberman at 5 to bone cancer, right? That wasn't even on my radar that a 5-year-old dog would be dying of cancer. We can do everything we want to do. And sometimes life expectancy is shorter or longer than we anticipated. But I think taking an honest look at it and also saying, like, okay, if my kids were gone, like they're up and out, they're doing life, and I'm home with this dog. Is that something I am willing and able to do? Like, for example, right now, one of my best friends is 76. I adore her. She has this tiny little chihuahua who is a hoot and a holler. Um, little Varney is hysterically funny, and she is like scavenger at the pro level. So I got them a ball pit. She gets a bunch of her meals in the ball pit and thinks that that is hysterical.
Yeah.
And did that increase her scavenging in the house? No, it reduced it. Right. So now I'm talking about to Valerie about how she can do that outside with the dog and how, she has we all have times in life that we've got some health stuff that there's going to be some temporary adjustments. So, how to accommodate that so that she's not feeling guilty that she's not doing all the things she's always done.
Right.
We're just going to do different things for a period of time.
And I do in that regard. I have a lot of families who, they don't want to spend more money
Right.
on enrichment things. And there are truly so many things, even that scavenging, just like use your Amazon box and the toys the dog already has.
Yes.
There's so many ways to create opportunities with things that you consider appropriate for them to do these things so that they scavenge less outside of that space. But it doesn't, if you just use a little creativity, you can come up with so many different things. And if you're not creative, I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
Right. I
Like,
mean,
all the
in
things,
theory, that should be dog trainers, right? We should
right?
be parallel thinkers.
I will say I hadn't thought of this, and I tend to think of a lot of things, but I saw it on the internet, the great place where you see lots of things is somebody did a bowl, you always like do licky mats or freezy things and stuff, or
Right.
we'll put peanut butter in a bowl with some bananas or something and freeze it. But somebody did one where they put the bowl inside a water bowl so that it was like jiggly instead of buying those toys. So the bowl floated inside
That's a
the
great
bowl,
idea.
and I was like, that's amazing because I'll do like the pool and just throw ice cubes in it because
Hmm.
some of the dogs love doing that. And so when I saw the floating bowl, I was like, that's a really good idea. Shocked I didn't come up with it. But I think I'm like, that would be fun for some dogs. Now my dogs would probably be annoyed with it at this age where they're at. They'd be like, forget it. But I'm like, that's a magnificent, like, that's a new fun thing that I saw. And I was just like, that's a really good idea and cost you nothing but what you have in your kitchen.
Right. I've done a lot of like taking treats and freezing them inside ice so
Hmm.
they'll float in the kiddie pool,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Or the bathtub. Like you don't even have to get a kiddie pool.
Yep.
You can just use the bathtub. You can
Hmm.
use the bathtub, by the way, as a ball pit and then
Yep.
rinse those balls off, let them dry, and then throw them in their mesh bag when you're done with them. Like none of this has to be complicated.
Right.
And if you have a dog who hates a bath, yeah, get them playing in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Like finding little bits of chicken in the bathtub that are jerkied is a great idea. So I will say lots of puzzle toys and enrichment toys. Dogs sometimes are, in my experience anyway, a little bit apprehensive because they're like, is this a setup? Like, am I going to get yelled at for this? So the first time I put the terrier in the ball pit, he kind of looked at me like I had two heads. So I sprinkled a couple of more kibble in there and he went, oh, game on. Right. So then he was off to the races. Um, but it is funny to me that at first, Captain, I have to find a rat. We don't have rats, but he is convinced that there has to be a rat somewhere in this house. Thank you very much. But the ball pit absolutely makes his heart sing. Like he is down with that. So it's an easy way for me to accommodate what he wants and needs with what I want and need, which is to not have to reorganize my kitchen every day because he's convinced that there must be some varmint in the kitchen.
Right. And there's, some one idea to you could do the baby thing, locks, whatever, so he can't get to them. And I think that's where a lot of the mindset stops is like, we just have to stop this behavior. We need to keep him from getting in the cabinets or whatever it is. So we'll lock him up. But
But that doesn't
then,
really work.
right. But then there's still this urge and desire and need in this dog that we need to meet. So we have to provide. Otherwise, he's just going to go get into something else and do the same thing. So to really have the idea that we need to provide something that he can do this stuff with. It's not always that we have to stop the behavior or it's a bad behavior. Like most of these things are natural behaviors, very natural to these dogs and animals. And we can easily meet those requirements a lot of times that they need so that they stop getting in our things. If we just give them the things that they're interested in, that we're okay with them doing.
Yeah. Like this little dog, I pretty regularly, when we go to the mountains, take paper bags
Mm-hmm.
and we'll just, walk along a path and collect up some debris, put it in paper bags, and then bring that home to put in the backyard so that the yard doesn't always just smell like our backyard. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, what? That's a pile of leaves from North Georgia. How did that happen? That came from Alabama. How did
Mm-hmm.
that happen? But he's getting to explore all of those scents and the animals that have come in contact with it and the people. Like sometimes it's easier to bring enrichment in than it is to take it out. I also will totally take this dog to, part of a field on the outskirts of the soccer fields where the grass is longer and whisper to him, I think there's a mouse. And we will go look for a mouse that is not there, but that he delights in for 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't cost me anything to walk around behind him, letting him look for mice that aren't there. And most of us have somewhere pretty close to the house that we can just go explore where there's some
Mm-hmm.
tall grass. And like right now in Georgia, it's like 39 degrees. So the snakes are not out. So I am totally willing to go traipse around when it's cold, not so much when it's warm, because we have a lot of venomous snakes here.
A learning process for both of you because you
So
were willing. I think
what
that's a big part of our job is, as animal parents is to be willing to let them be the beings they are.
well, and to remember our kids are watching,
Yeah.
right? So I do wonder so I do have a lot of college students that I work with because they're here at college. And some of them have attempted to bring their dog from home to their apartment. And the dog is absolutely freaked out
Mm-hmm.
and does not adjust very well,
Right.
right? College life is very different than the average household. Like doors don't get locked as often. Like I know you pound into your kids to lock the doors. I promise you they don't because their friends, their neighbors are blasting in and out of the door all the time. And I have never met a family dog who is completely comfortable with that at all hours of the day and night. Um, the screaming and yelling over, a score in a football game, unless your dog's been raised with that, that is completely beyond the pale. The kinds of parties you throw and the kinds of parties college students throw are slightly different, right?
Just
So
a little bit.
just a little bit. And so a lot of those kids, my recommendation, I'm like, okay, can you get me in contact with your parents? Because I'm saying to those parents, this dog is genuinely suffering, and your child
Mm-hmm.
is at the university to get an education, not to learn behavior modification with a dog trainer. This dog is miserable. It's a 14-year-old dog who grew up in your wonderfully quiet house, who is now living in a quad. Like, this is not working for this dog, and it is real suffering, right? This isn't it's beyond it's one of those things that I think how we think it's going to work and how it really works is really different.
Mm-hmm.
Now I also own that I don't get the call from the dog who transitions great
Right.
to that environment.
Right.
um but sometimes it is. I understand that you're trying to teach your child to be an adult and to be responsible. Getting the dog out of the situation is the responsible thing sometimes.
Sometimes. It all
But I
depends.
try to have that conversation instead of the college student
Right.
because those dynamics are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's different when it's like mom to mom or grandma to grandma, to be like, I get it. I understand where you're coming from, but this isn't fair. So give me when someone calls you and they're just overwhelmed straight up with life, what's one easy thing that they could adjust that would make everything better for everyone, including the pets?
There are so many.
What's
I
your
mean, usually,
go-to?
management. I've said that a couple times here, but
Yeah.
usually if it's just like, okay, tell me about your day, and it's like, there's one or two, there's usually 5 to 10 things that we can easily make the slightest adjustment for peace of mind. Like,
Yes.
or to simplify things. Whether it's, have somebody picks something up on the way rather than you having to go get it, whether it's putting a gate between the kitchen and the living room or the stairs or even at the bathroom, like whatever. Like there's just so many tiny things. I think, like, even in my household, it takes somebody from the outside to come in. Like, when I got Jack, I called a friend who's a trainer and I was like, this thing is really bugging me. And I know, like, I could answer this question for somebody else, and of course, as a trainer friend, they're like, well, what would you do if you were your client? And I'm like, oh, duh, like, of
Right.
course, I would put a gate here and I would use the kennel for this. And I
Right.
go, you know what? It's temporary. I guess that's it, is to remember that it's temporary. No matter what, even the things that are long and hard and difficult are temporary. Like,
Right.
forever is a really long time. And even if something is 5 or 10 years, 15, like it's still temporary in the span of our lives or in the phase of life that we're in. And I think that's kind of the whole thing that we started with, is that the phase of life that you're in and that your family's in is going to change. Things are
Yes.
going to be different. You can't plan and prep for everything, but to have an idea and realize you can roll with the punches and things can be different and it doesn't always have to be the same. And I hate the saying, but I'm going to say it. It's okay, like, not to be okay, because sometimes you are just going to go through the motions, but it's temporary and you can make baby adjustments and you might not be able to know what they are. So ask a friend, call a professional, look for things on the internet, whatever. But there's temporary things happening now, and there are little solutions and little things that you can probably do that will make big differences.
So is there a resource you would send people to?
I mean, it depends on what their what their problem is, right?
Right.
The resources kind of depend on where you're at and what your priorities are. But when it comes to dog stuff, I mean, there are a lot of positive trainers that have great blogs and helps. And obviously, your family dog is one of them.
Oh, well, thank you. Smarty Paws is definitely one of them too. I do love that the world is gotten to a place where the kind of parenting I was raised with kind of isn't tolerated very much anymore. That there's a lot more consent, there's a lot more empathy, there's a lot more understanding how to navigate it really through the lens of the other. I think all of that is also a blessing to our pets. Thank you for coming on the podcast and just talking some real life, a little bit of real life. Cut yourself slack. You're good enough, right? And management, and think it through a little bit more and have a plan for if my kids aren't here, what am I going to do with this pet? Because
That's
they're
how
going
we
to,
got two of our bunnies, is because kids got older, went
and
off
we're
to
playing with the
college,
bunny.
and couldn't take their bunny with them or got busy. One of them has a history and had lots of bunny attacks, so we're kind of a sanctuary home for her. The other one grew up as a kid's bunny, and then the kid got busy. And the bunny really was depressed. I mean, like, it was just not happy and it was sad and not thriving. But thankfully, I have girls who very much are, this is my pet, and they're kind of bonded, the
To
animal
people.
to the person and the person to the animal. So we were able to do that. But those are things that I thought about, because I'm like, wait a minute. Like, my oldest, she probably will be in our house for a while longer. So I'm like, well, you're going to be here. So you can make that bond with that bunny. My youngest, like, she was 10. And that was one reason it was like, what kind of pet can you get? And if that pet is bonded to you. And so we look at kind of like future plans. And that's why I still stay involved with all of the things with, I mean, it's her bunny, but I very much am very aware and spend time with him too myself.
And you're backstopping both your sweet girl and the bunny.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where with teens, everybody wants to know about infants and dogs. I think teens and dogs way harder to navigate because there's just things that shift and change that kind of blindside us a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
And just like you miss your kids, because I miss my kiddo, um, I think the dogs miss them too,
I think so.
and the cat. So thank you for spending your precious time with us. I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was good catching up.
Any special plans for 26?
No, nothing special, just doing life,
Doing life and
which
trying to
is
do it
kind
as
of special. You really start to appreciate and cherish things a lot more when people pass away and things change. And so doing life and just trying to embrace where we're at while we're here.
I think that's great though. So I hope you'll join us again on the Your Family Dog podcast. And if you have questions that you would like me to ask Debra or topics that you'd like her to discuss, again, she is one of the most creative people I know about integrating kids and dogs. So if you have special situations that you would like me to invite Debra on and that we could talk through those, maybe even having you on the podcast too, please reach out to yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. That's yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. Like and share, rate and subscribe, and we would love to see you again next time. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending part of your precious day with us. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, rate, subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you soon.